The Rwandan Genocide is the quickest genocide ever recorded. If they would come into a house, they kill the people, right? The mother, the father, the sons, and they find a baby. Someone on the radio would be calling out names. Dara, we are looking for you. You're not going to survive one more day. We know where you live. Da, da, da. Or they will say, there's this family of that lives in this area. Da, da, da. You know, you have to go and catch them and kill them, you know. And so they were giving instructions.
In this episode, we have a good friend of ours, Ian, from Rwanda. And it's a heavy topic. We wanted to cover the Rwandan Genocide, but we talked about many things.
Very interesting guy with interesting stories, and he experienced the genocide indirectly through his family. We touched on the Rwandan Genocide, the current political landscape, and we touched briefly on African politics.
Hope you enjoyed this one.
The Inspire Us podcast.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And it's funny, I was speaking to Dara, I was like, we should really talk about this Rwandan genocide. He said, I know someone.
Yeah.
The perfect person. The perfect person.
Yeah, I'm from Rwanda, you know. Yeah, the country, the best country in the world.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, now it's quite, a lot of things have changed and stuff. But we're looking, it's 30 years now since the Rwandan genocide happened. And man, it's just such a terrible thing. Like in 100 days, 800,000 people died.
You know what? A fun fact: the Rwandan genocide is the quickest genocide ever recorded. You know, so like, imagine 100 days, 800,000 to 1,200,000 people in 100 days. Those are 4 months. You know, so yeah, it's crazy, but people can do. You know.
But do you know what I heard about the Rwandan genocide?
Yeah.
Is that even though it officially starts on, when did it start? 1994?
Yeah, 6th April 94.
Apparently, the genocide had been happening for a long time. It was a gradual build-up and people were taking to the streets and killing each other.
Yeah.
And it may have officially started in 1994, but it was brewing for a long time.
Yeah, it was for a while. I have some family members that died before the genocide.
Oh, sorry to hear.
Because there was a war going on since, I think, October 1990. And, in the war, when the war happened, it was Tutsis rebelling against the government, which was Hutu, right? So there was a lot of propaganda going around, like the Tutsi rebels capture women, they rape them, they eat people, like really bad propaganda. So in the capital, or the side that was still under government rule, people were very obviously angry, and there will be cases of people pillaging and, getting into houses and robbing people, and but these were small cases of violence. It wasn't the full-out genocide at the time. Yeah, but we'll get more into it.
Bro, can you scoot this way?
Yeah.
With the chair, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
so it's a crazy story. How things stand in a space. It was really like one night, and then everything went boom. Yeah.
And the crazy part about it is, it's not even just the government. It's like people, neighbors. It's like people on people. Friends on friends.
Family. Wife on husband. Son killing a mother. Like for example, say your mother is a Tutsi, and your father is a Hutu. So in the Rwandan system, if you're half, you become Hutu, right? So because of the propaganda, the half Tutsis would be even more, how would I say it, like more radical, because they want to prove their Hutuness, you know? So some of them would end up killing their mothers, you know, like, you Tutsi, we can't have they would call them cockroaches, you know, we can't have a cockroach in our house, you know? So so many cases of children killing their parents, you know? Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it was very intimate.
You know, I heard the Rwandan propaganda machine took inspiration from, you know, Hitler and the techniques he used, and that's where this cockroaches term came from. But it's just crazy what fear, or the places fear drives humanity to, you know. It drives us to do the unspeakable, unimaginable.
You see, yeah. I think really any human being, put them in a uncomfortable situation, they can do anything. It's like if you get a rat and it's in a corner somewhere, and you get, let's say, a cat, you know, usually rats run away from a cat, right? But if they're in a situation where they're backed up in a corner and they're going to die, they won't dig a hole through the wall. They will run towards the cat, actually, you know. So these people were, through propaganda, of course, were made to believe that these Tutsis that are coming in are going to rape your wives, your daughters. They're going to eat your children. You know, it's going to be hell, you know. And the government at the time had been in power for like 20, 30 years of peace, you know. And so imagine, it's understandable in a psychological sense how people really went off, you know.
But that's what I think fear does, though. Because in society, modern society, everyone seems civilized.
Yeah.
But when you have a danger, when you feel like there's a threat, you can see how animalistic you can become, let's say, you know. It's quite fascinating. But on that Tutsi-Hutu divide, I heard that there wasn't really, you know, there's not really an ethnic difference. You guys speak the same language, a lot of the culture is the same, and that the differences were, you know, not contrived, but they were kind of forced out of the colonial regime, you know, the kind of, I think they had differences. Was it the Tutsi were herdsmen from the Horn of Africa and they migrated down?
Yeah, so it's very complicated because nowadays, if you do a DNA test on me, I'm Tutsi, by the way. If you do a DNA test on me and you do a DNA test on a Hutu, there will be a lot of similarities, but I'll have maybe some Arabic, some Middle East, Horn of Africa in me, while a Hutu would probably be more 99% Bantu, you know. So the history of Rwanda says before the Watwas, there are three groups in Rwanda: the Twas, the Hutus, and the Tutsis. So the Twas are pygmies, you know. They hunt. They don't, you know, they don't cultivate their food. They don't rear cattle or anything. They just hunt their food. And then the Bantu came in. In the whole of Africa, there was a huge Bantu immigration that came from Lake Chad, where Chad is right now. They went into West Africa, where we have Nigeria, the Ghanas, the Togos, etc. Went down to the Congo Basin, down to South Africa, and then they went up to East Africa, you know. And then around 1500s to 1600s, that's when the Tutsis came in from the Horn of Africa. And they came in as three groups, the Abazigaba, Abasindi, and the third one I've forgotten. But they integrated into one ethnic group in a sense, you know, because by 1800s, they all spoke one language and they all had the same clans, you know. It had become, of course, there was still Tutsis and Hutus and Twas, but they weren't ethnic groups. If a Hutu was smart enough or had a talent and managed to garner wealth, and wealth at the time was cattle, you know. So if you had, I think, more than 10 or something cows, you could become a Tutsi. You could,
Really?
in Rwandan we call it guhuturwa. Being removed from being a Hutu and becoming now a Tutsi. So eventually what happened is in 1884 there was the Berlin Conference, right? And they carved up Africa like a cake. And no one knew. The Africans were just relaxing, having their own, good time. And around 1894, right before there was a civil war in Rwanda, because there was a king that there was an expansionist king that was getting into Congo. And this we'll talk more about it because this is still at play right now, if you've heard about the Congolese war. So he was expanding into Congo, and then that's when the colonialists came. And then he died. And when he died, well, before he died, he had killed his wife, his first wife, because he was very erratic. He was that kind of king that would, and he had a second wife who had, another son, but he had a son with the first wife, and this son was called Rutaringwa. So Rutaringwa was supposed to be the king, right? But he had a younger brother called Musinga, who was the son of the queen mother. And in the Rwandan system, the king is almost like a co-king with the queen mother. The queen mother has power too. Okay. She's a center of power. But this queen mother was his stepmother, right? So Rutaringwa was not backed by the colonialists. So the colonialists backed Musinga, created the civil war, and that's how they came into Rwanda and colonized the country, So eventually what they did with this Hutu-Tutsi thing is they came with evangelists bringing Christianity to Rwanda. And the evangelists brought this new ideology called the Hamatite ideology, which says that because they were racist, these colonialists were racist, and they believed that black people are subhuman. But when they arrived, they found these tall, very sophisticated people. Rwanda had its own judiciary, parliament, government, and all of this. So what they did, they created that ideology that's based off the Bible. In the Bible, in the story of Noah, one day Noah was sleeping in his tent, naked and drunk, and one of his sons came in and found him drunk and naked, and laughed at him. And what Noah did, he abolished them and said, "You'll be a slave, you'll be a servant all your generations will be servants." So what they did, they said, these are the lost sons of Ham. Ham was the son of Noah, and Shem was the first son who became the Israelites, and etc. So through religion, they managed to create a separation between Tutsis and Hutus. Hutus were these sub-Saharan Negroid Bantu people who are subhuman, while Tutsis were the lost tribe of Ham, the sons of Noah, right? So, and that's how the Germans ruled. They did not rule directly. It was soft power. They would give orders to the Tutsis, and the Tutsis would give orders to.
So the Tutsis were in power at the time.
Yeah, the Tutsis in a sense enjoyed the colonial period. It's very sophisticated because afterwards, when the Belgians came in, they introduced slavery. The same thing they were doing in Congo. The Hutus were not allowed. They brought things like, for example, when they brought education to Rwanda, the Tutsis would learn in European languages like French, while the Hutus would learn in African language like Swahili. And then the Hutus were would become slaves in a sense, work without pay. While Tutsis were to collect taxes and pay off some taxes to the colonial masters while keeping some for themselves. So for the Hutus, how they saw it, they never saw colonialism. They never saw someone coming from Europe colonizing them. They just saw the Tutsis doing all of this. So that's why in the 1950s, when Africa was having its anti-colonial protests and anti-colonial era, it wasn't like in Ghana where it was Pan-African, or you go to all South African or whatever. It was the Hutus liberating themselves from the Tutsis now, because the Tutsis were the colonialists. So in 1959, the king died, was killed by the belligerents, because he wanted to go back to the old system of Tutsis and Hutus and the kingdom, and then the Hutus wanted a republic with democracy, because the Hutus are majority anyways.
And I heard even at the time where Belgium was ruling, they came in and gave out identity cards.
Yes, that's one of those things that they did, because the Belgians were different from the Germans. The Germans let the country be as long as you paid taxes to us, while the Belgians brought schools, they brought religion, and now they brought systematic racism. They brought ID cards, and on your ID you'll be written as Tutsi and Hutu. They would measure your face, your nose, and your eyes and hair and everything, and categorize. Now they removed the Guhuturwa. If you remember the phrase Guhuturwa to become a Tutsi, it was removed. If your mother and it's like one drop rule. Like in America, if you have one drop of black, you're black, right? It's the same thing in Rwanda. If you have one drop of Hutu, you're Hutu, right? So to become a Tutsi, you have to be a pure Tutsi, and it will be in your ID card, Tutsi, Hutu. Yeah, so that's how they did it.
And I heard that some people didn't even know before these ID cards that they were Tutsi or Hutu.
Oh no, everyone knew.
Okay.
Everyone knew. Yes, because this is a cultural concept. Before colonialism, everyone knew their clans, because there are many clans. There are like 48 clans, and Rwandan is a tribe with clans, right? And then it's almost like a caste system: Tutsi, Hutu, Twa, and then different clans, right? So everyone knew where they lied, but there will be obviously some bad lords who are Tutsi who would. There are stories of some who would use a spear to stand up, and they would be like, my spear is too precious to hit the ground. So they would call their Hutu servant to put their leg, and they would pierce their leg and stand up. Such things that are brutal. So there were some Tutsis that were brutal and some that weren't. That's how it is in a caste system anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot gets said about the Tutsi-Hutu divide. But what role did the Twa people have to play?
So the Twa people have always been not involved or put to the side because they're 1%. And they live mostly in the forests and away from everything that's going on.
Okay.
Yeah. But they also had their own contribution to society, you can say. They were musicians, poets, that kind of thing. And they would hunt for the king,
Okay.
Yeah. So they're very good musicians. The king used to have, for example, like a choir or royal music, and all of them would be Twas. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So then Belgium is ruling Rwanda. They bring racism, they bring divide. The Hutus see this colonialism as Tutsis. And then you said the king dies. And is that when Rwanda gains independence? So what happens to Rwanda after they gain independence?
So the king died before independence. I think after World War II, the UN was created. And in the UN convention, they made a special commission for decolonization. And so they went around these colonial states, or whatever you can, colonies, and they would make reports. So what they did when they came to Rwanda, they got 2 reports instead of 1. One was from the king, and one was from the Hutu elites. You know, the Hutu elites created something called Parme Hutu, which is a document that is like like in the Bible you have the 10 commandments. That's like the 10 commandments of self-rule and of the Hutus. You know, and the king was talking about going back to a monarchical state. So obviously there was friction, and the king was poisoned in Burundi. And when he died, we had the referendum in 1959, which obviously the Hutus won with the majority.
Why, obviously?
Because the Hutus are like 70-something% of yeah. So after the independence, which was 1962, that's when you can say the first genocide happened in 1962 actually, because 1962 to 1967, over 200,000 Tutsis died from these kinds of killings, and over 800 went to exile: Uganda, Tanzania, Congo, Burundi.
And so this happened after, now that the Hutus are in power?
Now the Hutus are in power, yes.
So that means that even before that time, there was like hate building.
Yes. Even in 1920s, there would be skirmishes, you can call, there would be some protests and these kinds of things. But at that time, the colonial masters were there. So the colonial masters would help the Tutsis to calm down the situation while feeding the Hutus with propaganda and telling them, these people, you should remove them, right? You need more power and stuff. So after when the colonialists were leaving, what they did is they gave more power to the Hutus, the Hutu elites, and told them, this is your time.
So it was kind of a switch in power as the colonial powers were exiting.
Yeah, but this switch was engineered by the colonialists.
Wow, so a lot of the resentment really between the two groups were fabricated by the colonialists. And I was even reading there were about 3 massacres in Rwanda in the build-up towards the 1994 official genocide. A lot of people call it a Rwandan civil war. But would you agree it was more genocide against the Tutsi people?
So that's a very sensitive question. It's so sensitive that if I was in Rwanda and I said anything but it's a Rwandan it's a genocide against the Tutsi, I'll probably end up in jail.
Wow.
That's how sensitive it is.
Wow.
But the truth of the matter is there are Hutus that died. This was a war. It started out as a war. Like I told you, 1990, there was a civil war of the Tutsi diaspora or refugees coming back home, and the Hutu government trying to protect its borders. And so even during the genocide, there will be moderate Hutus. Say a Hutu is married to a Tutsi and wants to protect his wife, and if the Interahamwe, do you know what Interahamwe is?
No.
Interahamwe. So Interahamwe was a paramilitary group that was created by the genocidal government. Interahamwe means the people that attack together. The historical context of the name comes from a group that used to fight for the king, an elite force for the king back in the days before colonialism. But they got it again and they used it as the Hutus that were carrying out the genocide. When you see these videos of people with pangas, those are the Interahamwe. They were trained, they got pangas from China, imported thousands of pangas. And,
pangas, what is that?
Pangas is machete, machete?
Yeah,
like knives, but they had all sorts of things, knives,
That's
boxes
what's just so, shocking about the war. It was very, not rudimentary, but it wasn't very advanced warfare. It was people in the streets with their hands and like machetes and wow, honestly.
There's also stories of people. So if they would come into a house and they kill the people, right? The mother, the father, the sons, and they find a baby.
Oh no.
9 months, let's say.
Oh no.
They would get the baby, smash the baby on the wall, for example. Or there's this one that's very famous or known. They'll put them in, like in Africa, they have this wooden thing where they crush nuts to make it fly. Yeah, they would do that to the baby.
Wow.
Yeah, they'll put the baby inside and they'll smash the baby into...
Oh, like a pestle and mortar kind of... Oh, wow.
But these people were so it's very crazy because the president that died in 1994, which started the genocide, there's rumors or the stories that say he was dealing in cocaine, So these presidents back in the day, in the 80s, maybe even now in Africa, they are not just presidents. It's more like a mafia, like a criminal.
In Nigeria, Tinubu has loads of links to...
You understand? I think he was arrested in America.
In America in the 90s.
Yeah.
I think he has some connections with the Nigerian mafia. They're very infamous.
Yeah, you see. So these are criminals. So the Interahamwe were on crack, on cocaine. These were very psyched out people, And they say it in there nowadays, we have something called gacaca. Gacaca means it was the ancient judiciary in Rwanda before colonialism. And the way it works is the perpetrator comes and the victim's family comes and there's a group of judges and they talk, the perpetrator confesses what they did, and if the family forgives, the issue is forgiven. If the family doesn't forgive, the judge chooses the sentence.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to ask you a bit more about, what was going on during the war and just kind of how this fear was created and propagated through society, and what techniques they used, what people were listening to, just some of the content that the government were releasing. How quickly did it spread through Rwanda?
So in Rwanda, since 1993, I think, there was this radio that was created called Radio El-Telem.
El-Telem.
El-Telem. And Radio El-Telem was created by the richest man. And this man is in The Hague right now, answering for his crimes of genocide.
Really?
Yeah.
Is in where, sorry?
In The Hague, where's The Hague? It's like almost like ICC, International Criminal Court. But at that time, he was the richest man. I think he's from the family of the wife of the president. And he created a radio that would just pan out propaganda every day. That was the whole thing.
Who was the president at the time?
The president was Habyarimana, Juvenal Habyarimana, and he was one of the 9 people that created the Palme Hutu document that I talked about, you remember, in the 1950s. So he became president in the 70s, did this thing, and then in the 90s when the war started, the way they did it was through mass communication. At that time, people had radios, and there were no TVs. And the radio is a very powerful form of communication, right?
Yeah.
So the LTM was, they used popular music, like the 80s music, jazz and funk
and disco,
all that.
Wow.
Yeah. So they used all that nice music was to target the youth.
So was it nice? So would it be Rwandan artists playing disco songs which were about hating the...
No.
What do you mean when you say nice music?
At that time, I think in East Africa, Congolese music was
very popular,
like how Afrobeat. So if it was to be compared to today, it would be a radio playing, let's say, Whiskey
or Burna Boy or something.
But in the middle,
It would be these messages.
Yeah, so they will be like, yeah, oh, this is a song from Burna Boy, and then the song is done, and then there will be these funny people, on the radio that are very charismatic. Yeah, and then they'll be talking about how the Tutsis, they are raping our children in the north. They're doing this, and if you have if you have a Tutsi in your house, you're a traitor. Do not trust the Tutsis because they will backstab you and they will kill you. Just building up that hatred for the Tutsis slowly by slowly, By the time the president died in a plane crash, people were already ready. They had lists, they had made lists of which houses have Tutsis. It's like block 37, those are Tutsis. In block 43, they have one Tutsi, and then when the genocide started, the radio would go, someone on the radio would be calling out names. It would be like, Mr. Dara, we are looking for you. You're not going to survive one more day. We know where you live. I know, or they will say, there's this family of that lives in this area. You have to go and catch them and kill them, And so they were giving instructions and morale to that.
That's so crazy. And I heard so basically they used popular music to become the most popular radio that everyone would listen to.
Yes.
And once it was established, they spread this message.
And they even got the most popular radio journalists from the Rwandan radio, the main radio. So this radio was almost like the official radio, really. Because it was owned by the richest man who was close in the same family with the first lady. The employees were from the national radio station. They were using the national radio station equipment. They had coverage all the way to Uganda. People on the border in another country.
And how did people listen to this radio?
Well, it's like a radio. You just tune into the right radio waves and you listen. Yeah.
But did everyone have access to radios?
Radios were very accessible at that time. It's like late 90s, 1994. So they were very, And obviously there are poor people at that time, but there would always be like, let's say in a cafe, someone that has a radio. People go there, drink, and they listen to the radio, right? Or this person has a radio, he calls the neighbors, they come in and they just listen to the radio because they didn't have TV at that time. So you can imagine the form of entertainment. Say Rwanda is playing football against Nigeria, they would listen on the radio, right? So
So there's many opportunities to spread.
Yeah, to spread
the hate.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Uganda, and I just wanted to ask you about what I believe is a critical moment in the genocide. And I'm aware the RPF, the Rwandan Patriotic Force, they were kind of congregating off the border of Uganda, is that correct? And they planned a coup almost, and that moment was when the hate just took to a whole new level and the propaganda spread. And I just wanted to ask you about the role of the RPF in this genocide. And
so the war started in the 90s. By the time 1994, when the genocide started, the RPF was controlling almost half of Rwanda by that time. So they were deep into Rwandan territory. But they had links to Uganda because these were former army officers in the Ugandan army. So there's two stories, depending on which side you are on. So the Hutu extremists say that it's Kagame that killed the former president, right? Shot him because he was coming from making a truce. They had agreed to end the war and have and share power.
Yeah.
And the Tutsi army wasn't happy about that because they wanted power for themselves. And this is what was broadcasted in the radios.
Yeah.
That the Tutsis have finally killed our great leader that has been in power for 30 years, But on the RPF side, which is the official government, story, they said the Hutu extremists were angry with the president for talking to the enemy, because they had been planning the genocide for a while, and this is documented. And they felt like he was softening up to the Tutsis because he had allowed them to now create like a government together. So they manufactured a coup and killed them. So from the Hutu side, how the RPF was involved in the genocide was by being the ones who started who killed the president, And there's a saying that goes around that Kagame, when they were planning to kill the president, they said Rwanda is like, I think they said like Rwanda is like boiling oil, and just putting some fire to burn. So they wanted to create anarchy so that they can appeal to the international community and be like, look at the government, they've lost control. We are the people that are saving lives now because the government is committing genocide, While on the RPF side, they stopped the genocide. They did not get involved in the genocide or start it in any way. It was just people that were losing the war that decided to kill people. Yeah. So there's two different stories depending on which side.
What side you? Yeah. On that note of intervention and trying to get, foreign intervention to help the situation on ground, I heard the Rwandan Genocide was one of the most preventable atrocities. Do you believe that? Is that the case?
I think it's a tricky one because how do you bring these people to live together when there's been hatred amongst them for a long time, So the civil war was going to happen anyways.
Yeah.
These were army generals in Ugandan. They had fought. They had been in war for like 8 years. And now they were saying, "This is our country. We want to come home." Right? How the international community would have stopped the war is by being on ground with actual foot soldiers with guns. Like for example, find a force with UN or African Union and deploy on ground, which they did, but the force was not allowed to engage. It was supposed to protect government institutions, and not start shooting. Or,
Okay.
if there was someone being butchered in front of them, they would just stand with guns. So how do you stand with a gun when a woman is being butchered or raped in front of you? Yeah. So definitely they could have done more. There could have been more, engagements and yeah.
But perhaps the idea that Western intervention could have stopped this is a bit of an overstatement. I mean, history has told us many times. Sometimes it really just adds fuel to the fire and makes things worse. And I think they were a bit cautious because Somalia just had their own.
Yeah, in 93, yes.
In 93.
But also, it's deeper than that because there are many conspiracy theories, but this one is a very one that makes sense.
Sorry, many conspiracy
theories
about
how why the West or the international community didn't stop the genocide.
Okay, could you share with us?
Yeah, because they wanted it to happen because they were backing the Tutsi RPF rebel group to gain power. Kagame, before he became the army chief or the leader of the rebel group, he was being trained by the CIA in America. Now you see the connection, CIA, yeah. So, and at the same time, while after this war happened and the civil war started in Congo in 94, 95, that's when the internet boom came and computers and personal laptops came. And guess where the mineral that creates laptops comes from, 90-something% comes from East Congo, North Kivu, where this civil war was happening at the same time when there was a boom. So I believe that the genocide was, I don't know, I've forgotten the phrase, but sometimes they will say like unnecessary evil, because they want to reach something, So since the 1994 war, there's never been peace in East Congo, and this mineral, 90-something% comes from East Congo, is being mined by child slaves, kids that are 9 years old, being paid nothing. This is why these laptops are cheap. All these electrical devices are cheap, So it just seems too convenient to me,
Yeah.
The genocide was just perfect for the West. These Microsofts and Sonys and whatever, they really made good money from this war. Yeah.
So sad.
So yeah, I don't think they would have, even if they were invited, which actually they were. I don't think they would have wanted to. Even there's a record in the UN Assembly where the representative of America, I think the representative of America was saying, those are Africans, let them kill each other.
Wow.
You understand? So, yeah, there was no political motive to end the genocide, yes.
So Rwanda gains independence, and then for 30 years, is it the same leader after they gain independence?
So after independence, 1962, they had this guy called Kayibanda, Gregor Kayibanda, who was in power from 62 to 73. So those are 11 years. And then he was removed in a bloodless coup by his best friend and army chief of staff, Juvenal Habyarimana, who stayed in power from 1973 to 1994 when he was killed in the plane crash.
So there's a Hutu government throughout this whole time.
Yes, it was a Hutu government, just two different factions. Yeah.
Because I wanted to ask, during this time, so we talked about how they're making this radio. It seems like they want to create more hate and more division.
Yes.
Why do you think that's in their interest to continue, creating more hate between the Hutus and the Tutsis?
Well, the government the government was losing the war because, if you're losing the war in the military sense, you want the populace to be very hostile to these newcomers, these non-Rwandans. They were being called Ethiopians coming to invade our country, So it was a military strategy to push out propaganda and make them, each piece of land that they would gain, the RPF, would be hard to control because the people themselves don't like them.
So the war was between the RPF and the Rwandan government?
Yeah, the FARD, Force Armed du Rwanda. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And did that war happen? Was that a very long war, like throughout?
It was, including the genocide, it was for like 4 years, 1990 to 1994. The genocide was just the end, and the catalyst was the death of the president. Yeah. Yeah.
So Ian, you mentioned earlier that your family was deeply affected by the genocide. Only if you feel comfortable, would you mind sharing with us in what ways and how it impacted your family and the tensions it caused?
Well, for me, it wasn't. It's not. Maybe it's not too direct, but my mother's mother, my grandmother from my mother's side, had a sister, and her only sibling was in Rwanda during the genocide. And my mother told me a story of how she went to Rwanda, because my family grew up in Uganda as refugees. But right before the genocide in 1994, so the genocide started in April, my mother went to Rwanda just to visit her auntie in February or something. And she told me how her auntie was surrounded by Hutus and she was the only Tutsi woman in the area. And apparently she left maybe a month before the genocide. And her family was just butchered. Only 2 survived, and it's because they had left the place. They were living somewhere else. I don't remember the details of how they were killed, but obviously you can imagine, spears, chopped into pieces, and everything, raped. Yeah, one of them was married off to, some of them would be like, oh, Tutsi lady, this is mine. This is my wife now. And one of them ended up after the genocide, the Hutus ran away outside of Rwanda. And one of them ended up in a refugee camp with the Hutus, the people that killed her family, as a hostage wife to one of the killers, until she managed to escape and come back home. So yeah, for me it hasn't been. I was born after the genocide, so obviously I do not have any recollection or any direct experience. And both of my parents, they grew up in Uganda as refugees. My father was was part of the RPF, fought to remove to end the genocide. So for me, it's more on the removing the genocide part, because my father was part of the army, and my uncle was one of the main people in the leadership of RPF. Yeah.
So it's important to mention that even before the genocide, many Tutsis were leaving Rwanda.
Since 1959, people were leaving, because 1959 was the first, before there were many situations that were happening, but 1959 was the beginning of, like a precursor to everything. That's when people were being killed. That's when the king died, the last king of Rwanda died, and people were being killed in the streets. So around 800,000 Tutsis ran away. 200,000 were killed, So it kept on happening. 1962, independence, Rwanda gets independence, and they started a system of segregation, and a Tutsi wouldn't be able to go to university. Certain jobs where a Tutsi could not get, and Tutsi women became just these people to marry, these beautiful girls to marry, and that kind of stuff, and sometimes, someone will get maybe drunk and kill a Tutsi, and it'll be like, okay, they just killed one, and, So people kept on running away from the country slowly by slowly, and people kept on coming back, There will be families that will be like, it's good now. Why are you suffering in exile in Uganda or Tanzania? Nothing has happened to us for 5-10 years. Come back and you'll be fine, And some of them came back 5 years before the genocide and ended up dying. If they had stayed abroad, they could have survived. So, yeah, it was like that.
Ian, could I talk about how family life is in Rwanda today? The amount of hate running rampant through Rwandan society. How was unity created? Has unity truly been created?
So, for me, I haven't been in Rwanda as much, but I've experienced the diaspora, the Rwandan community outside. So I'll talk about it from those two, from my perspective as someone that lives in the diaspora, but also from what I've heard is going on in Rwanda. So from outside, Tutsis do not hang out with Hutus, if we're in London, you'll find a group of Rwandans that are the whole group will be Tutsis, and then you'll find a group of Rwandans and the whole group will be Hutus. And I've been in situations where people, maybe someone is a Hutu or something, and people get drunk or something or start arguing, and they're like, you Hutu, da, da, da. It becomes an argument. So there's still some level of hatred, you know, and the Hutus have this bad name of being a genocider. So people call them more genocider than Hutu. They'll say, "Are you genocider? You murderer, you killer," you know, that kind of thing. You know, and many Hutus go around calling themselves Congolese now.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, so, and there's a lot of suspicion, you know, in the diaspora. You will see some Rwandans who, if they are next to a Congolese and this guy says he's Congolese, they will be like, "Ah, that guy maybe is Rwandan." Just, you know, don't speak Rwandan around him, you know, because he will understand, he will act like he's Congolese, but he is actually some Hutu, you know. And I've been in that situation, you know. I have a friend who Tutsi, and we also had another friend who is Congolese, right? And he's very in these pro-African things. And so we became close in that kind of way, right? And he invited that friend of mine that's Tutsi to his house for dinner with his parents. So this guy thought, "Oh, I'm going to a Congolese house. Oh, it's going to be fun. I wonder what Congolese eat." You know, so he went to the table and boom, the mother started speaking Rwandan. Started cussing out Kagame, this Tutsi, and Rwanda has a big culture of poisoning, you know, political poisoning, and this. So this guy came back really traumatized and was like, "I'll never trust a Congolese."
See, this is what I can't really wrap my head around, because I think the media portray Kagame as this benevolent figure who Rwandans revere for bringing them through such a horrible time of their history.
That's the current Rwandan president.
Paul Kagame, yes.
And he kind of runs an autocracy. I mean, me and Alex are talking today, and he won a majority recently.
Yeah, he won with 99
just
point
yesterday.
something. Like a week before, past week, like maybe on a Thursday, that's when. But everyone knew he was winning. But you see, the thing with Kagame is there's two sides to the coin. There's the autocracy, dictatorship, whatever people say, but there's also love for him, you know. I think if he let the people vote how they wanted to, he might actually win. He might maybe get a 55% or a 60%, but he might actually win because he is very strict, and Rwandans are very, they respect, how they call it, they respect power and authority. You know, this is a country where every last Saturday of the month, everyone goes around sweeping the streets. You know, and you don't go into a house knocking, like, "Come outside." Everyone is ready to go and clean. You know, so these people, like, even the attendance of the elections supersedes the one in the UK. This was almost 100% attendance, you know. But also, there's the autocracy, dictatorship side. There's no opposition. There were two people that stood against him, and he's got 0.1%, 0.2%, and these people are hired by the government to stand as opposition. There's only been 2 protests in Rwanda since Kagame has been president, and those were for army officers in his government that were arrested in France and I think Spain for being the ones that killed the former president, the one I told you that started the genocide. So these are pro-government protests, you know. There's never been anti-government anything. So does that mean there's nothing bad happening in Rwanda? People are just happy, and so it's Rwanda is very complicated, you know. And even I wouldn't love to go so deep into the politics of Rwanda because, you know, I don't know what would happen to me. Yeah, it's not a joke there. You don't joke about politics. Yeah.
Just the extent to which Kagame suppresses any sort of dissent. I mean, Rwanda to me seems like this heavy police state, very authoritarian.
Yeah, very. They even America, I think in the 90s or early 2000s, created a spy system, you know, like spying through the phone, and the CIA had created a new one. And the first country they tested it in was Rwanda.
Wow.
And Kagame himself was trained by the CIA. So this is technically a CIA agent ruling a government, a country. So it's very organized, and it's Rwandans are very docile, or they're very eager to be ruled, and they do not respect weak governments. Even if Kagame was to go off, there will be someone like Kagame. I think really leadership reflects the population. There's a saying, like, if you were to go into a pub and have an election in the pub, they will choose the best drunk. So the leader really reflects the people, right? So the people, that's what they like. And even the Habyarimana, the Hutu president, there were no opposition parties at that time. It was the main party, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
But you say you have this perception that Rwanda is a heavy police state, but on the other side, people that don't know, Rwanda, and from a Western perspective, we see now new Rwanda, visit Rwanda, touristic Rwanda, clean Rwanda. Like Rwanda, plastic is illegal, I heard, in Rwanda.
Yeah.
So some people have a very, modern image of Rwanda that they don't see all this stuff.
Well, it's an image that's sold. It's they are very good at selling the country. And for me, from my perspective, it's good. I don't have an issue with it. It's just that certain things get lost. Like, for example, you say that streets are clean. Are they cleaned by a government agency or by the people themselves? It's mostly people that clean those streets. If the government decides to build a road through your plot, there's nothing you can do. You have to give them right of way. You lose your plot. If they want to build a road in front of your house, you have to pay for the road. It doesn't matter if you're broke, you have to pay for your bills. They have decided the road in front of your house is going to be tarmacked. You have to find the money to finance it. So it's that kind of, everything has an advantage and a disadvantage. So it's like people have no power to decide, protest, or say this is too much, but at the end of the day, it looks nice, it works. There's times, like back in the day, they said no grass-hatched houses. And people that were poor, they couldn't afford roofing. They had to destroy their houses and become homeless. And there's a situation of, there was I think, how do you call it, Commonwealth meeting that was happening in Kigali, and there was a place that was homeless, or a slum, that looked really bad for the country, because, like you said, there's an image of Rwanda being organized, clean, and everything. They went and destroyed the whole place and threw the people in the outskirts of Kigali, where no one can see them. So these things are not nowhere to be seen in the media, and the main problem is the Rwandans cannot say anything, because who is going to help them? They will come and kill you and say you committed suicide. Yeah, and then what? You're dead.
With this image, this new image of Rwanda they're trying to portray, are they also partly wanting to forget about the genocide that happened, or do they hold on to? They want to remember that history.
So there's a memorial period in April. Every April 7th to the 14th, we have genocide memorial, genocide against the Tutsis. So and the whole period on the TV, everything is about the genocide. Documentaries, pictures, songs, everything is genocide. But they ban people openly saying I'm Tutsi and I'm Hutu.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you cannot go around saying I'm Tutsi or I'm Hutu. It's banned. But everyone knows in their houses, like, I know I'm Tutsi, And even when we're hanging out in the street, everyone's like, those Hutus or those Tutsis. So everything is kind of on like surface level. That's how Rwanda is. If you were to put Rwanda in a sentence or a word, you say surface level, and everything under is just like everywhere else, or even worse, maybe, And if you look at the Congo thing, it really reflects what's happening in Rwanda. Congo, there's this group called the Banyamulenge, and Hutu groups around them. And these Hutu groups are saying, you Banyamulenge, you are Tutsis, go back to Rwanda. And there's another genocide that happened in 1997 in Congo of these Tutsis, they were killed. And the Tutsis are saying, this is our land. We are Congolese. Yes, Rwandan, but because of the colonialism, they cut us in Congo, so we are Congolese, If you want us to be Rwandan, let us go with our land. And these people are saying, you cannot be Tutsi. There's no Tutsi Congolese. Tutsis are Rwandese. So go back where you came from. So if you go to Congo, that's where you see what really is happening between Tutsis and Hutus. Because in Rwanda, everyone is supposed to keep quiet about it. If you go to Congo, there's a bit more freedom of speech or anarchy, really. There's no control. There's no government in Congo. So people just do it. There's a video I saw last week of a lady that was walking in a town in Congo, Tutsi woman, and they realized that she's Tutsi. So they stripped her naked on a roundabout in the middle of the street, and they were stoning her. They were like, Tutsi, Rwanda. Rwanda is Rwandan in Congo, in French. And so
the hate hasn't really gone anywhere.
It hasn't gone anywhere, and it has become worse because when you have an issue and you don't talk about it, you don't sit. So let's say I have an issue with you, but we can never talk about it. Your problem with me is going to get worse, and mine is going to get worse. And it reached a point where it's just blast. So you might say Rwanda is like this bomb that's just waiting to blow.
That's so fascinating to hear that, because Rwanda is it's been depicted as this, it's the success story of Africa, Everyone talks about Rwanda so highly and what Kagame has done and how he's forged social unity. And even for a time, I was so impressed. I was thinking to myself, wow, look at all that hatred and the violence that happened just 30 years ago. And now they're able to create some unity. But it's very interesting that, it's still there. Nothing's really changed.
It was only 30 years ago.
It was only 30 years ago. And I think really the best way to solve this issue is to have people that run away from the country come back, because that has always been the issue with Rwanda. So at the beginning, the Tutsis were exiled. And then the Tutsis fought and there was genocide. They came back and took the government. And now for the last 30 years, it's Hutus in exile. In Belgium, some say they're Congolese. Even all the way in Mozambique, Zambia, South Africa, Hutus are spread over everywhere. And where are they going? Do you think they will forget that they're Rwandan? No. So it's just another situation that's just waiting, which generation will pick up arms and come back home.
Okay.
You understand? So, there's a lot that this government has done for Rwanda, but there's also things that they haven't done, or made even worse, maybe, you can argue.
Okay, so Ian, with that in mind, without getting you in any trouble, what are your thoughts on Kagame's regime?
No, I'll just say it as it is, really. For me, Kagame is just like any African president, really, and when we say autocrat or dictator, just like any, it's like when we used to talk about Gaddafi, and what happened after Gaddafi was removed? Anarchy, right? So I don't believe the solution is removing Kagame, but I do not ignore the bad things that he has done. But then again, I think, how do you rule a country like Rwanda? In 1994, when they got into power, there were like maybe like 2 or 3 judges in the whole country, all the doctors killed or ran away or committed genocide. You know, there was no institutions, nothing. And now you just say like you think Rwanda is this, and you thought, you know. So he has been able to consolidate and create an image
of Rwanda,
Rwanda, and Rwanda is, you can create a business in Rwanda in 1 hour, like right now if you were to go to Rwanda.
Yeah, because some of the things I was reading about Rwanda's development, some of the stuff is, honestly, it's quite remarkable what they've been able to achieve, how they incorporated foreign investment. I think what helped them is they received a massive aid package because I think the Western nations felt a bit sorry that they couldn't intervene. Yeah. And he used this to develop industry and infrastructure. So I think perhaps, I don't know, but it seems a bit harsh to compare him to some of these other African leaders. Because some of them, bottom of the barrel. They are god-awful, so greedy, don't even have a vision for the country they're in. Yeah. So perhaps, you know.
Yeah. I think it's one of those situations where, first of all, Rwanda is lucky because it's close to Congo. All those minerals that are being stolen from Congo, where do they go through? Rwanda and Uganda. And then plus the aid, the guilty consciousness of the West. They got so much IMF loans and funds, But also, Rwanda is, I think, one of the least, the country with the least corruption in Africa.
Not only Africa, I think on the corruption ranking index, they're higher than places like Italy and Greece.
You see?
That's
fantastic. So the money that's, you can say maybe the money they are stealing it or that it's loans, but it is doing things, you know. I'm not saying that life over there is, like, for example, when I hear people in Nigeria, for example, say, I wish we had Kagame. I'm like, I don't think Nigerians would survive Kagame, or they wouldn't like Kagame because they're too independent and vibrant for...
Nigerians are so dynamic, very expressive. They don't like that control. Which to me, Rwandans perhaps seem a bit more docile. We are full of life. Our culture is very dynamic.
And you see, the thing is, that's how you can see it in the streets of Lagos or like other places in Nigeria. You see, like, some place looks like New York and then others are slums. It's just vibrant and there's authentic development. You know, there's this story of, I don't know if it's true, but the president of Uganda, Uganda is almost like Nigeria. Vibrant people, unruly. I do what I want.
Like to drink, like to dance, like to eat food, party.
You know, like, so they were saying, Rwanda is more developed than Uganda, and then the president of Uganda said, because they were saying Rwanda is so clean, they said, at least we have food to throw that becomes garbage. You see, like when you eat a banana, you throw the peel, and that's what becomes garbage, right? If you're starving and you have nothing to eat, obviously your house will be clean. Have you seen those people that are really broke? You go into their house, they have no TV, it's just the bed and some clothes. They will most probably be cleaner than someone that has a TV and PlayStation and a bike and all the, you know. So Rwanda is clean and organized because there's not too much. You know, there's this American that moved to Rwanda because of the hype. You know, they'll be watching these YouTube videos. And then he was walking on the street and he saw this boutique selling clothes and he saw some nice shoes on the mannequin.
Yeah.
And he went in and was like, can I get those shoes? They said, the shop was empty. They said the only clothes we have are the ones on the mannequin. You know, so people just put the
illusion.
Yeah.
Because my friend, actually, he visited Rwanda. I think he got caught up in the hype as well. And he's very into development. So he was enthralled to see an African nation with the infrastructure that Rwanda has. But he said the capital, it felt soulless. You know, you only go to a city, you meant to feel the culture, feel the people.
The bars, the nightlife.
Yeah, everything. The highs, the lows, the ugly, the beauty. Apparently in Rwanda, it was very stale.
Yeah,
you could feel the effects of that dictatorship.
Yeah. You can, everyone feels it, it's just too
harsh.
Yeah, it's like if you were to go to, not to say Rwanda is like North Korea, but if you were to go to North Korea, you'd be like 9 p.m., everyone is quiet. Wake up, the streets are clean and empty and everything's sparkly, flowers on every side of the road. And it looks nice. You can take good pictures and post them on Instagram. Would you live there though? Would you,
But even that story that you talk about, the guy at the shop, they only have clothes on the mannequin. I thought about it. That reminded me of North Korea.
Yeah. It's Rwanda is more like it's not an autocracy. It's more like I think it's a kleptocracy where it's like families that are, it's almost like a mafia. There's Kagame, and then there are these rich families that pay homage to Kagame. So there are people that are making good money in Rwanda that are rich, but the ruling party, which is RPF, has shares in their businesses. There's this guy called Gwigara, was one of the richest people in Rwanda. He got killed in maybe 2018 or something.
Yeah.
And the reason why he got killed was because they came to him and they were like, give us 50% of your business or something like that. And then he said, no, this is my business. I grew it from scratch. I ought to decide if I want to sell it or not. And then they killed the guy.
Wow.
So that's how things work. If you want to make it in Rwanda, you have to work with the government, and then, and yeah. So that's how it is.
That's crazy. Perhaps, yes, Nigerians should be very careful on what they're wishing for.
I think so. They should be. I'm not saying that Tinubu is a great guy, Yeah, and I think also Tinubu is a puppet. I think
Western
someone
puppet.
like Peter Obi.
He was a lot more. He had a vision for the country.
Yeah,
you could tell where his heart was.
But I could tell from the get-go, this guy was not going to win because he's too pro people. In Africa, that's the issue with Africa is people think we got independence. This is the neo-colonial era. Every country has a puppet in government. You answer to the interests of multi-billion companies or societies or countries or these kinds of things. There's no real independence. Independence is not only political; it should be economic, and cultural. So and Africa does not have it at the moment.
So it's a shame. It's
a
real
shame. Yeah.
But I mean, perhaps in the future,
I think it's very. I think when I speak to most youths in Africa, they are waking up. If in Rwanda, yes, the politics is put to the side because we know our political issue.
Yeah.
Most people are like, so remove Kagame and then what? We might end up in a genocide because that's all we know. Every time someone gets off, it gets really bad, really, really bad. So people are just focusing on other things, and you see countries like Nigeria, the music. Every country is listening to Nigerian music.
It's global. Everywhere you go, they love Nigerian music.
Yeah, so the cultural independence is coming along now, and the financial independence will come slowly.
But that's one thing. This is why I kind of read into the Rwandan story and it kind of inspired me a bit for Nigeria, because I think the main issue with Nigeria was a lot of it was tribalism and how it runs so rampant. It really, it's sort of the cornerstone of our politics is this tribalism and it's this history of, I'm in power, so I'm going to look after my people. Then someone else is in power, I'm going to look after my people. And even in Nigeria, we have this thing of, it's going to be a Muslim president, so next term it should be a Christian president, then a Muslim. So we had this idea of of very segregated
groups and and you see, I even saw it in and it's the same in Rwanda. I think this is a phenomenon really in Africa of tribalism and religious sectarianism. Like for example, Nigeria, when they were having the recent elections, all the Christians, the Nigerian diaspora in UK, all of them were posting Peter Obi, Peter Obi, Peter Obi, and all the Muslims, they were Tinubu. And you can see that these people are not looking at their interests. What is this person going to do when they get into power? Are they going to have higher taxes? What are they doing for students? Are they giving out loans, or are they, like when we're having elections in Europe, it's not the face, it's the policies that we're voting. The idea that it's not the person that's going to sit. This is why you see in America, Joe Biden stands down, someone comes in a split second, and the people that are going to vote are still the same. The face doesn't matter. But over there, it's more like, which tribe are you? Oh, yeah, that's kind of my tribe. Or which religion are you? It might be the most corrupt person. Like even in the South Africa just had elections, and Zuma, which is like a former president, left ANC and created his own party. And because he's a Zulu, all the Zulus voted for him. And this is a guy who got out of power because of corruption. This guy stole, it's documented, he's been in court and everything, So in Rwanda, like the army is just Tutsis. There's not even one Hutu in the army.
Really? Why is that?
Because the country is a military state, you can put a Hutu like prime minister or minister of trade or something, but the army, those are the ones that control power. You understand? There's no Hutu that can get anywhere close to power, and if it happens that the Hutus get into power, you see a total, even the flag was changed. The national anthem was changed. The official language was changed when the Tutsi came in, So
now we talked about Rwandan history, that Tutsis were in power, then Hutus were in power. Now are Tutsis back in power?
Yeah, the Tutsis
are the Hutus becoming, bitter or resentful because of this?
Yes, the Hutus so obviously the Hutus that have been in Rwanda, regardless, and those are just normal people in the streets. They don't. The normal person does not really care about politics. They're just riding their bike, trying to make money, selling their clothes. But the Hutus that are in France, in the UK, Belgium, some in Congo and over, they've made millions now. They've been working for 30 years, building up the financial capabilities and connections and all of this. And they have their own political parties that have been operating for the last maybe decade or so. Even in Congo, there was a group called the FDLR, which was like the former army that ran into Congo. They put down guns and became a political party, So there are people that are trying to go back into Rwanda that are Hutus, and they're saying the genocide was a genocide against Rwandans, not Tutsis. And they're also saying that the RPF committed genocide in Congo against the Hutus. So you see how the narratives are completely different, opposite. So one side is saying you killed us in 1994 and we stopped you and you're genociders. The other side is saying you've been lying about it. Yes, you died, but we also died and you also killed us in Congo anyways. So, you can't say you're angels, so yeah, it's two groups that I don't see anything of them working together. Yeah.
So Ian, sorry to divert, but what you said earlier, I can't really get over it. You said there's this fear that if Kagame leaves, then genocide might be back. So is there this ubiquitous fear amongst Rwandans in Rwanda and the diaspora that this isn't forever, that the genocide could return. Like,
yes, first of all, there's a fear created by the government because of the genocide memorial period that we have every year, 7th of April to 14th of April. Actual pictures of people being butchered. I remember as a kid watching someone being butchered on the street at 7, 8 years old. I would go to bed sleeping with a table knife because I would believe the Hutus are going to come back for us. So that's psychological. They're creating a trauma in the populace, So if I wasn't there in the genocide period, I never experienced genocide, but it's almost like I experienced it, because of every year being shown pictures of houses being skulls. You can go on Google.
Yeah, that's the thing. The worst part is like this was 30 years ago. Man, like there's videos of the genocide, like
Yeah.
and it's crazy what you see, man. Like
Yeah.
bodies on bodies, just people with
Yeah, that's the power of the propaganda and the media, really. They don't want you to forget, which is good. Do not forget. So if you forget your past, you repeat it, right? And but the problem there is savior mentality. People thinking, oh, these people saved us, and if they're not here, we will die. We'll go back to what we were doing before. And to be honest, that's how every Rwandan feels, because you can feel the tension. So many people, but also the normal people like Hutu, Tutsi that live together happily, no issues, just minding their business. Like for me, I do not like. I've been in situations where I'm obviously hanging out with my Tutsi friends, Rwandans that are Tutsi, and I say something that they don't expect me to say, because they expect me to be like Hutus. So I say something just like, we're all Rwandans. Why can't we just live together? And they say, I knew you were Hutu too. You understand? So it's like there's those people that are just stuck in the past, and there's also people that have been deprived of being Rwandan for 30 years. Since 1994, the people that have never been able to go to Rwanda because of the fear of being arrested or something happening to them. So that anger has been growing in them. You can never remove the identity of someone. They can go say they are Belgians or Nigerians or whatever, but they are Rwandans and they want to go home. And they'll always tell their kids, nah, you're Rwandan. That's your country. When, work hard and one day you go back. Wow. So that's where the fear comes in, really, because there's a situation that hasn't been really solved. We talk about government of unity and reconciliation, and all these kinds of things. But when you look at how power has been, who gets to who are the richest people in Rwanda or who is in the army, and you look at millions, maybe even half of the population of Rwanda itself is in the diaspora, immigrants, calling themselves Ugandans or Mozambicans, or, so you can tell if it's not solved in any other way, there could be something like that. I think, and what's happening in Gaza just goes to prove, because before we used to think, this is 2020 or 20 something. We have internet, we have cameras. There's no way something like the Rwandan genocide repeating itself, where people are going with pangas, chopping each other. But when you see the videos of what's happening in Gaza, babies without necks and whatever, you realize cameras don't change anything. When people go mad and there's total anarchy, nothing will stop. It will just be more documented, really. It will be more pictures of people chopping each other and burning each other and stuff. Yeah.
But that's the thing. I think that's so crazy and important about the Rwandan genocide is this total anarchy and this total, almost like we became animals,
Yeah.
That people just, went crazy, and the darkness that people were doing, man. Like, you would never expect, like, maybe someone, their whole life, they did nothing and they became a murderer in one day.
Yeah. You see, and even now, after like a while because there's this reconciliation thing, and, you know, some of these people that did the whole genocide thing and have spent 20 years in jail, you know, maybe became Christians or Muslims and stuff. They go out and they reconcile with the families of the
And you say
victims.
they went 20 years in jail after the genocide.
After the genocide. So they start talking about why they did what they did. And you realize the common story is peer pressure. You know, if I'm in this university and say, just to make my point, everyone here is against Israel because of what's happening in Gaza. They're saying, but the way they're talking about Jews is almost like Holocaust. Like, these Jews are killing the kids in Palestine. We need to kill them. Slowly by slowly, these people stop being humans, you know. And like we discussed about the propaganda of, you know, Tutsis were being called snakes, being called cockroaches. They weren't being called by the name Tutsi anymore. They would say, those cockroaches in your backyard, that snake that you call your wife, that cockroach, that, you know, they wouldn't, you know. At that point, someone, after hearing it, you start dehumanizing those people, and it becomes very easy to kill them or treat them like animals. I mean, like, how many, at least for me, I've seen a goat being slaughtered. You know, I didn't go and get depressed and start, you know, being guilty because a goat got butchered. But that's a life that has been taken. But because in my mind, I've made it so normal for goats are supposed to be reared and then butchered at some point so that we can have meat, it becomes just normal. Yeah, you kill, the blood comes out and you dry it and then you cook it. So it's the same thing. Humans can reach a point where another human's life loses value because of the hatred, you know? It's the same way, like when we argue about Zionism and Palestine, when these babies, when a person that's pro-Israel sees these babies, they see it as a necessary evil. They say, we have to do it, you know, just to massage their brain and make it normal, you know. So that's the same thing that was happening in Rwanda at the time. You know, they were like, the whole point was to eradicate Tutsis, kill them until there's none, so that this issue that we've been having for thousands of years, in the future, there will be the Tutsi might come or the Tutsi might do this. There will be just Hutus and peace and tranquility. So that is necessary evil, and that dehumanization just makes it very easy to carry a stone and smash someone's head, you know, until they're dead. Yeah.
So being so close to the Rwandan genocide,
yeah,
what has that taught you about human nature?
It's taught me that we are animals that like to think that we are different from other animals. We have the same instinct as any other animals. We are actually more brutal than any other animal, you know, more savage, you know. You know, the moment, you know, if let's say that we were to have like a message, like a loud message, there's microphones somewhere, and they say, World War III has just started. The government has shut down. You see people running to Tesco's, robbing. You see ladies, these normal ladies that walk around like they're angels, walking around pushing people. That's mine, you know, because they believe there's going to be a lockdown and I need toilet paper, I need water, you understand? It's very easy to be evil. I think anything good is hard and anything bad is easy. Naturally, that's just, you know, if you want to go gym to get muscles, you have to suffer. If you want to get fat, you just need to sleep and eat yourself to death, you know? So it's the same thing. To do something evil, you just have to kind of let go of your conscience and virtues and, you know, these kinds of beliefs, and then you lose yourself, you know? Everyone has something they hate, you know, like, even if you think you're the best person, if you stop trying to be a good person, you end up being like Mussolini or Hitler or these genociders, and that's what happened to them, with drugs added to that, with frustration, poverty, hunger, and everything. Yeah, they just lose. Yeah, so that's why I've realized about this condition we call humanity, or this human condition. Yeah.
Because all these 20th century leaders you just named, they all thought they were doing good. They all thought they were saving humanity.
So
very thin line between good and evil.
Yeah, very thin line. Yeah. And there's also a very thin line between genius and insanity, or that kind of thing. I think if we were to get the babies that are, let's say, not older than 1 year or 2 years, and then we get everyone that's old and put them on Mars or something, and these babies are raised by the nicest people in the world, it will still come back. These babies will grow up and they will start hating each other, and the evil will come back. So evil, for there to be good, there has to be evil. It's just nature, That's how it is. If you get water that's clean and you leave it in this bottle for 3 years, it will get dirty somehow, So it's like it is what it is, really.
Yeah. It's part of humans.
Yeah, it's just part of us, It's just the struggle that we have to continue, having. Make sure that we don't go back to those situations. Yeah.
How would you ensure the Rwandan genocide doesn't happen again? Do you have any ideas of how to?
Yeah, I think the best way is transparency. People being able to sit down and talk, and having an open space for an open field for political competition. I believe in all the diaspora being able to come back home. I think some things have to be forgiven, because not forgiving them just makes the issue worse. For example, the wife of the president that was killed in a genocide, she's an accomplice of the genocide. They had a group called Akazu, which is like the house, which is the one that planned the genocide. She's been living in Belgium, but to the Hutus, she's a savior. She's the former first lady, sorry. So if they do not forgive her for whatever they think she did, because she's not gonna take herself to jail, the situation will never be solved. So I think forgiveness, which is the hardest thing, should be what we should work on, and transparency, and yeah.
So they're still persecuting people now for crimes and atrocities that happened.
Yes.
And they kind of have this council of elders who are deciding.
Well, there's different ways. So there's court. There's also gacaca, which is like the low level for people mostly who have been in jail and they want to be forgiven. Like say they have 10 years and you want them to go out and stuff. But there's also ICC. Like there's a woman in Norway, I lived in Norway. That when I moved to Norway, I went to a Rwandan church. See, now you're going to understand the dynamic. Went to a Rwandan church, and there was this lady that was apparently Rwandan that had been in Norway for a while. Very nice lady, Christian lady, and everything. And then they find out she has to answer for genocide in Rwanda. And all of us were like, that's a genocider. She got deported and she's now in jail in Rwanda for committing genocide.
Wow. And
I just remember her being like, Jesus, praying and everything. So amazing. But, you don't know who you can trust, And I think, like, for example, the friend I told you who went to visit his friend that's Congolese and the parents are there, who knows what they did, Or maybe what they didn't do, but they have to live in exile because of this perception that they must have done something,
But would you forgive anyone who committed crimes? I mean, if it's the amount of fear that was propagated through the government and just, this.
I would forgive.
Would you?
I would forgive if I was the president or someone that has some power. I would forgive, and I would forgive and harbor that hatred myself. I'd rather be the guy who forgave them, because at some point it has to end. It has to end because everyone has a son and a daughter, and and they will tell them their story.
Yeah.
It's not like this generation will die off and disappear. No, their children will be there saying, no, my dad suffered because they said he committed genocide, but he didn't do it. And then there will be another family saying that, no, he did it. He killed my father. And then these people will be fighting. And then their grandkids will be fighting. It has to reach a point where, like they say, you have to reach a point where you're comfortable being uncomfortable, where you're like, I know this guy did something, but for the future, we forgive, we let it go. Yeah.
Because it's funny you say that, because I was listening to this woman who was just recalling her experience through the genocide. And this genocide led to her grandmother and her mother being killed. And it's been, 30 years now since? But she was saying she just couldn't forgive. Yeah. She was trying so hard to forgive.
Which is understandable, right?
And she met her killer. She ended up going back to Rwanda and met her killer and talked to him, looked him in the eyes, and those feelings that she's been harboring for years, they just can't go away. And she wanted to try her best to forgive, but it was a feeling, or she just couldn't.
And it's very sad because, it's sad because that anger is hurting her more than the person she hates. Say, obviously, that maybe the other person has guilt if he feels that he did something wrong, but say he doesn't, she's going to walk around for the rest of her life, carrying the hatred and the anger and she can't let it go. So these are the issues, I totally, completely understand. We all have mothers, right?
Yeah.
Imagine watching your mother being raped and killed in front of your eyes. Would you ever forgive? I mean, we can all talk as in like, oh, imagine, but imagine if it actually happened, like for real.
Yeah.
So these people, I totally understand why they can't forgive, and but that's where leadership is important, where you just have to force the forgiveness onto the people, where like people see that person, yes, did it, but yeah, it's whatever, because it will never get solved,
You can't eradicate those feelings.
You can't.
But then there's a saying, they say time heals all wounds. Do you think it could heal this wound?
Yeah, time heals all wounds, but if there's only one side of the story being told, maybe it's healing one wound and there's two wounds, So one is being hurt more and one is being healed. And the one who is being hurt more will come back to hurt the healed, So if you see the Tutsi youth going around saying Rwanda is so good, we moved on, reconciliation, there's no Hutu, there's no Tutsi, but how does the Hutu youth feel like? How does the Hutu 20-something-year-old kid that has never stepped in Rwanda because maybe his father killed someone in the genocide, but according to him, his father didn't, but he's been deprived of a sense of identity, how does that person feel the reconciliation and the unity? No, I don't think so, So I think we have to be honest with each other and just, sit on the table and, everyone, the extremists sit, the moderates maybe moderate, and we just sit with each other. And sometimes, you can be in a family and you hate your brother, but there's no other house, This is the only house we have. So we have to just eat together and sleep together,
Don't you think that's a bit idealistic? I mean,
It is.
everyone
It
has
is.
different versions of good.
Yeah.
You know? One person at the end of the table has a very different perception to what good is to the other person. So how do we create this social unity, you know? How can we actually rationally talk this out, forgive and forget? It's a question
It's a very hard question, you know? It's a very, very hard question. And this is where I remember I was saying, maybe people are too harsh on Kagame, you know, because when he came in, when this government came in, there was no justice, there were no hospitals, there was nothing. And there was total decay of even the society to a family level, father, son, you know. You find families where my son killed my wife, my uncle killed everyone. And, you know, so there had to be a level of like serious control and being like, you go sweep the street, you go do this, you do that. If you don't do it, we cane you, we imprison you, we kill you. So that people are like, okay, cool, let's fix our thing, you know?
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, we just, like I said, we just have to have a conversation. And it could start with these political groups, you know, these especially these that are in exile, coming, or if they don't even need to go to Rwanda if they don't trust Rwanda, but say go to Tanzania or some place or even in Europe and sit on a table and just discuss these issues, you know, on the level of leaders, you know, before you bring in the people, you know. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, very, very interesting. So that's why, you know, I'm sure Kagame is quite a contentious topic. People have many different views, but just you guys were essentially a failed state at one point.
Yeah.
And you've been able to have I've read about the healthcare system and how he kind of used drones to deliver blood to people and what he did what he did with infrastructure and even some of the land reforms in Rwanda. Because you guys are very densely populated. I think it's one of the most densely populated regions in Africa. And
it's quite a small country.
Yeah, very small, yeah.
I think it may be the smallest.
No,
Burundi,
they're smaller, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But some of what he did with the land reforms, you know, a lot of people didn't have access to courts and they didn't have the financial capabilities to go through court, and he kind of incorporated these, and he essentially, he sorted out the land very fairly. This is just what I've read. I don't know if you correct me, but just some of these ideas, you know, that he came up with me. To me, it kind of seems like he did the impossible, you know.
Yeah, I think so, and I think one of the reasons is because when he came in, people were desperate for a solution, so they were ready to grasp onto anything, you know. So that's what makes them very, you can say docile, but you know. Obedient,
you
know, and when there's little to no resistance to government reforms and ideas, they tend to work. You know, they tend to work anything, you know. So I definitely I take my hat off for what Kagame has done. You know, I respect what he has done, and I think even the harshest critics of the guy, deep down, they can respect what he has done, you know. But then again, the worst things he has done are very bad.
I can imagine,
if I was to say this I have a friend on campus that's Congolese, you know, and another friend that's Ugandan. And when I told them that the Congolese is a chill, nice guy, Christian.
Yeah.
So when I got to know him and I told him I'm Rwandan, he was cool, you know. But he told me how people view Rwandans in Congo very badly. I told you the woman that was being stoned in the streets for being Rwandan. Now the Ugandan, when I told him that I'm Rwandan, he didn't want to talk to me, you know, because Rwandans have had such a bad. It's like neo-colonialism. When you think of agents of the West in East Africa, that area, Congo area, you think of Rwandans, you know, who is protecting the interests of the West in that area, Kagame. And if I go around saying Kagame is so great, I'm literally on the side of the West, So, yeah, it's a complicated issue, really.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
On that note of Congo, so the M23 Rwandan rebels are currently in, is it Eastern Congo?
Yes.
And they're kind of, not formed a coalition, but they're partnering up with the RPF. Is that correct? Can you talk us through about what's going on in Eastern Congo today?
Yeah, so M23 is political and armed group is there to protect the Banyamulenge.
Say that again?
Banyamulenge.
What does that mean?
Yeah, Banyamulenge is a tribe or ethnic group of Rwandans that moved to Congo in the 1800s. When I told you there was a king that was expanding into Congo before the colonialists came. So they got some land in Congo and they've been there for a while. But these Banyamulenge are just Tutsi. It's not like Rwandans, how we have Tutsi, Hutu, Twa. They are just purely Tutsi. And they're very, very segregative to the point that some marry even their cousins.
Wow.
So 1994, the genocide happens. The Hutus that were the genociders run into Congo, and they find those Tutsis living there. So they continued committing genocide on those Congolese Tutsis. And that made the Tutsis that had gone into power in Rwanda, because they had some Banyamulenge in their army, go into Congo and say we are there to capture the people that committed genocide in our country, and also to stop the genocide that's happening in Congo. But what they did, they started killing the Hutus, right? So, but long story short, they were backing a Congolese called Kabila, who removed a dictator in Congo at the time called Mobutu Sese Seko. So they removed Mobutu, they put on Kabila one, and this Kabila was backed by a Tutsi army. And then obviously he wanted it to be Congolese. So he said, you Rwandans, go back. Yes, I've gotten the country. Mobutu is off. No one is killing your people. Go back to Rwanda, right? And then the Rwandese could not trust him because of there's a Rwanda phobia in Congo. So they killed the Kabila guy and they were expelled from Congo. And then the Banyamulenge created their own rebel group. Before that, it was another name, I forgot, but they created peace and joined the Congolese army. But on the 23rd of some day, they split and they made their own armed group. That's why it's called M23, because 23 the day. And so this is a group that's supposed to protect the Banyamulenge tribe in Congo, because these people are essentially countryless. They're being told, go back to Rwanda where you're from, but they're saying we are Congolese.
Wow.
Right? So, but the problem is, these people have been used by Kagame for him to mine gold and because where they control them, it's a very gold rich and mineral rich area, and there's so many mines. And these mines, everything that's mined in their territory, the M23, goes through Rwanda, right? This is why Rwanda is developing really fast, because most of these things go through Rwanda, right? So that's where the issue is. It's like these people are majority of them are Rwandese. It's like the Rwandan army has fused with the M23. The Congolese are saying these are not even Congolese. Go back where you came from. We'll sort our issues out in Congo. And then the Rwandan government is saying we have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Banyamulenge or Rwandan-speaking Congolese in camps here. Don't think they will always be here. Just because we're not your dustbin, basically. You cannot throw your trash in our house and expect us to just leave it there. These people have where they belong. They should, you should deal with your troubles in your country. And so it's, there's two sides of the story. And actually the truth is in between, these are Congolese, yes. And they've been deprived of the sense of identity, but they've been also used by the Rwandan government to steal Congolese minerals, but also maybe they feel like they have the right to the minerals because it's their land. So yeah, that's where the issue is. And at the moment, as we speak, it's almost war, direct war now, like Rwanda and Congo.
So where do you think this conflict is heading to?
Yeah, total war. Total war, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's been proved that now the Rwandan army, RDF, like with the Rwandan flag, are being seen in Congo. Before they used to wear the M23 uniform. Like Rwandan soldiers would just wear the rebel uniform and act like the M23. But now they're just going in uniformed as Rwandan army, and they've been captured actually and put on video saying, yeah, we were trained for 9 months in a camp in Rwanda and sent over the border to fight. Yeah. So it's a very sad situation because these people are not Rwandans. Now, even me as a Rwandan Tutsi, everything, I can tell someone that's a Munyamulenge, even the way they speak. They are not Rwandans, but they are forced to be Rwandans, most of them are born, raised in Rwanda. And if I speak to a Congolese person and I say this person is these people are Congolese, they'll just take me as a Kagame lover or something, yeah. So that's how complicated it is, yeah.
Where do you see the future of Rwanda? Do you think it's going to be bright? Do you think this turmoil
is it will be bright, I don't think there's any country that doesn't have issues, so it's just most of these African countries are very young. We got our independence in 1962, and in 1962, 5 to 10% of the population could read and write. So imagine a whole country being led by 10% of the population. So many mistakes have been made, but like you said earlier on, time heals all wounds and that kind of stuff. So, now almost 100% of the population is literate and educated, and yes, the issues might have become worse over time, but they will get solved if there's intent and the desire to move forward. Then obviously, yeah, I think Rwanda will always be there, So, yeah, what can we do? We have to solve our issues. Yeah, yeah, and Rwanda is one of those countries that many African countries look up to.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we have a responsibility to fix ourselves,
But even the Rwandan genocide affected Africa, big time,
Yeah, in Uganda, people couldn't fish. Like Victoria, there's a river that goes all the way to Rwanda. That it's like a subsidiary, and they were like they were throwing bodies into the river, and the bodies would get all the way into Uganda. And for like a year or two, people couldn't fish because the fish was eating dead bodies, and they were just picking up dead bodies every day, every week, just in Uganda, all the way in Uganda. And if it had went on like that, these bodies could have gone all the way to Sudan, to Egypt. Like, you see how crazy it could have gotten. Like, if you were to throw millions of bodies in that river in Rwanda, they would get to the Mediterranean Sea.
Wow.
So that's how I guess that's how we are connected, all of us. You can't just ignore a situation somewhere so far. Like, okay, let them kill each other. It will affect you at some point.
But do you think what's going on in Eastern Congo could have implications for the Hutu-Tutsi divide? Could they have spillover effects and make things tense again?
I think it is already that. It's already
Doing that.
a situation that is happening because of the tensions. The tensions. There are Hutus, and this is one of the things that the government is saying in Rwanda, that these Hutus that run into Congo, because of how they look, you cannot tell a Rwandan Hutu from a Congolese. So those who are born there just naturalized themselves. They got new names, called themselves Congolese names, and now they are the ones that are very anti-Tutsis. So when you see the Rwandaphobia in Congo, it's when you hear what they're saying Congolese we do not have Tutsis in Congo. We do not have. They're not saying you cannot be Rwandan speaking in Congo. No, they're saying you cannot be Tutsi in Congo. Which means you can be Hutu and speak Rwandan and be in Congo, but you cannot be Tutsi and speak Rwandan and in Congo.
And is that
so
because
it's already
of,
that situation? Eh?
Is it because again the Tutsis are seen as colonial?
It has gone past colonial. It has now just become Tutsis hate Hutus and Hutus hate Tutsis. Because you killed us in the 1994 genocide. You killed us also after the genocide. So what are you talking about? Oh, so we hate each other. Boom. And even M23, there's so many things that they say they do: rape women, slaughter them, and everything. So you can say they've been committing genocide themselves. These Tutsis that do not do anything wrong. So it's a complicated situation, really. Yeah, and this Banyamulenge, they see it from it's actually more like the Israel-Palestine thing. How brutal Israel can become towards Palestine because they're protecting their sovereignty. They're like, if we have to survive. We have to survive, so we have to bomb these people. They want to eradicate us. So it's the same thing with Banyamulenge saying, where will we go? We are Congolese. These people are saying we are not Congolese. They are coming. If we don't have guns and protect ourselves, they'll come and kill us. So it's better we kill them before they kill us. So it's crazy like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least you say the future looks bright for Rwanda.
The future it looks bright, but there's a lot of work to do. Yeah.
A lot of things to address.
A lot of things to address. Or put in some box and lock it up and throw it in the bin somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But maybe what you can get from all of this is Rwanda is more complex than it seems.
Yeah.
It's not clean streets and yeah.
That is how it's been shown to the world. It's Kagame save Rwanda. These tensions are no more, and it's peace now.
No, it's not.
How can we spread more love? How do the Rwandan people spread love? How do they engage in any events to?
Well, I haven't been. Funnily enough, I haven't been to Rwanda since 2010.
Okay.
I'm almost half of my life has been abroad. But I think if we focus more on the Africanness, this Pan-Africanism or something like those ideas that really minimize these differences, it could actually help. Because, for example, even the friend of mine that I told you that's Hutu, that says he's Congolese, we met on Pan-African. We met in the times of Black Lives Matter. And that time, every black person was talking about Black Lives Matter, So we used to go on picnics together, bring food. I wouldn't be like, this guy is going to pose on me, or I would just see him as my fellow African. So when you start seeing things at the higher altitude, these small differences become irrelevant. But when you start being microscopic or trying to look at the small details, that's when even if the Tutsis were to be eradicated, let's say, that Hutus will find differences. I told you, like 1962 to 1994, there was a Tutsi government, right? But there were two presidents. The first one was from the south of Rwanda, and the second one was from the north. The coup that happened in 1973 was the northern Hutus removing the southern Hutus, which is basically both of them are Hutus, but now they have created a division now.
Yeah.
We have the northerners and you're the southerners. And apparently the southerners are more close to the Tutsis and the northerners are pure Hutus. So they had to remove the mixed breeds or something like that, So there was already some difference we can find if we look,
No, I agree. And I think it's just so important to create social unity, create this bigger picture.
Yeah.
Because even Europe, I know we like to see Europe as, everyone who's English is pure 100% English and everyone who's French is 100% French, but they're so mixed. They're just as mixed as us, you could perhaps say. They've got so many different influences.
But we also have to realize and actually appreciate the work we have done, because see, like for example, Nigeria,
Yeah.
How many languages are spoken in Nigeria?
300. I think it's one of the most.
Right? And then compare with Europe, how many languages are spoken here? Probably 30 or, So one country speaks 10 times more languages than a whole continent, So, and how many tribes are in Nigeria? Like proper tribes that had their own kingdoms. Even the DNA, if you were to take a DNA test in Africa so in Africa there are 4 groups, or how could I say? Ethnic groups.
Yeah.
There's Afro-Asiatic, there's Nilotic, there's Bantu, and there's the Khoisan. The Afro-Asiatic is Arabic, Amharic, and Arabic and Amharic. The Bantu is the Sub-Saharan Bantu, and the Kwa, which is West Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, etc.
Yeah.
And then the East Africa, South Africa, and then the which one was the Nilotic is the Luo. Like these tall South Sudanese, very dark skin. Their language is like Luo. They'll be speaking like Rwanga, Obanga, Tangwang. It's different, completely different. And then the Khoisan is like South Africa, the ones with the click like right? If I was to, so I'm Rwandan, right? Rwanda is here. There's Uganda, and there's South Sudan. And even in Uganda, forget South Sudan. There's Nilots. There's Bantu, and I would be categorized as Bantu, right? If I take my DNA and I do a test, the results come, and this Nilot takes a DNA, our DNA is way more different than if let's say a Chinese person would take a DNA and compare it with an American or a British person. So I'm more different from a Nilot than a Chinese is different from a British person. But when you see the distance between us, like Uganda, they're living in one country now. This is one country with Nilots and Bantus, So, if you go to, like, for example, Tanzania, there's Nilots, Khoisans, and Bantus in one country. You see Nigeria, 300 languages. So to be able to create a sense of identity, shared identity, say like if I'm Nigerian, but I'm Igbo. I'm Nigerian, but I'm Hausa. There's always that other identity that you're close to. I'm Rwandan, but I'm Tutsi. But if you're British, you're British. Maybe I'm from Essex, or I'm English, right? I'm English. There's no Maybe I'm a northerner, say I'm from Manchester, but really that's not really a big difference. If you were to take a DNA test of someone from Manchester and someone from Brighton, it's almost like they're cousins or something, you know. But if I was to take a DNA test of a Hutu and me, it's like super huge, you know. So so it's like nations in nations, and if we've managed to hold it together in some way, you know. There's been war, conflict, everything going on, but that's what it takes to create a country, you know. You see, like for example, Tanzania has managed to do it because they have Swahili. They banned all these languages. Like if Nigeria was to ban all these small languages and create one language, maybe from all the languages, and just combine it into one, then people would feel more connected to that thing that's called Nigeria. Because now they think Nigeria, when they think of Nigeria, it's this thing that was created by the colonialists, you know. Independence Day, we celebrate this thing, you know, and then afterwards we go back to our tribes, we speak our, you know. So so we have to create a sense of identity that unifies us, you know. And that's one of the solutions in Rwanda, you know. Like yes, we do have the one language, but we have to forget this Tutsi Hutu stuff, you know.
Even in the case of Nigeria, I also think it's important to move on from these ethnic differences, because it's sad on one side because colonialism essentially eradicated all these different cultures and languages with, I'm sure, their own beautiful stories and histories.
Yeah.
But for the sake of moving forward, I guess Nigeria has to be this overarching identity for the sake of the country, so we can move past, you know, all these differences and become united, you know.
I think so too. I think like you see these tones, like say, is it the Yorubas that are business savvy, like if you're with the Yoruba, he'll steal from you. You know, there will be always those small things when people think of tribes, you know, or these houses, you know, military dictators, killers, or you know. And if, like for example, in Nigeria, this English, this broken English, how they call it?
Pidgin English.
Yeah, Pidgin English. You see how it unites them? Like when we listen to Afrobeat, no one is thinking that Wizkid is a Yoruba or Igbo, you know, or whatever tribe he is. You know, they are proud. This is a Naija boy, you know. You understand? So it really brings people together when you have something in common, you know, because you're not singing they mostly sing in Yoruba or.
I think Yoruba is the dominant language, but Pidgin English is the main form of communication. Yeah. But it goes back to that point of, you know, this rise of Nigeria culturally. I think this could be, you know, a very good tool to, you know, develop this national unity and create this identity of Nigeria and really solidify it, because everyone's now not obsessed, but people really love, you know, Nigerian music, and through that they're more fascinated about the culture and the food and the history. So I think we can use this, you know, this boom in Afrobeats to really, you know, just unite the country.
Yeah, unite the country and find pride in being, you know.
And focus on what's good about the country.
Yeah, instead of being corruption, Tinubu. So many, this is one issue that maybe we as Rwandans, on the topic of Rwanda, we have to also realize about ourselves. Many Africans look outside and be like, I wish I was like that. I'll look at that country, you know. So you don't know how many Africans look at Nigeria and be like, I wish I was Nigerian.
Yeah.
You understand? But when you talk to Nigerians, they are always complaining.
If you live through a Bacha, if you live through a Bacha's corruption.
You understand?
Yeah. Yes.
So there are better days, at least somehow.
Yeah.
You understand? So,
but I guess it's the grass is always greener on the other side, you know.
Yeah. But if we have, if we're hopeful, then there will be better days. But if you have like even Rwanda, how Rwanda we've been talking about this miracle, how Rwanda was able to move forward was by not being like, negative, pessimistic. It's being hopeful for the future.
Ian, you're so right. It's all about hope, because if you don't have hope, what do you have? What do the future generations
You understand?
have? You know?
There's nothing to live for. There's no purpose.
You have resentment.
Yeah,
You're stuck in the past.
You're stuck in the past. You're not moving forward. There's no growth. Where are you going? So it's very important to even if it looks really bad, but find something good to latch on and be like, yeah, at least this, And this is what makes me sad, because I lived in Uganda for a while, and many Rwandans moved to Uganda for work, because Uganda is one of the cheapest countries in Africa, But the Kampala, I don't know if you've heard of the capital city Kampala, very disorganized. It's one of the busiest countries, capital cities in the world. Traffic will be for like 2 hours. You'll be stuck in one spot, And these Ugandans are complaining, like, look at this Rwanda. They had a genocide in 1994. Remember them as refugees in our country. Literally, my parents tell me stories of how they used to be discriminated as Rwandans, these refugees, You see how we are treated, black people, whatever, treated here in Europe as, well. Go back home where you're from. This is how they were treated in Uganda as Rwandans. But then Rwandans got their country, now it's clean and everything, and they look at their city, rubbish on the street, traffic, bad roads, potholes, and they're like, they wish they were Rwandans, but they don't realize how many. It's like, if you wish you are Rwandans, why do you think there are more Rwandans in Uganda than Ugandans in Rwanda? Why do you think all these people are running to your country and you're complaining about refugees and foreigners in your country? They're coming for a reason. It's like South Africans being like, South Africa is so bad economy, but Nigerians are there and making a killing. And now when they make a killing, you are jealous. You're like, they're stealing our jobs. But you were born there, you speak the language, where you understand. So sometimes you have to be like, okay, this is where I am, and just look for the good, because there's no one is going to love your home more than you. Yeah.
No one is going to fix it for you.
No one's going to fix it for you. And some people will see the good and they will use it. And you'll be stuck in, my country is so bad. Well, like maybe I'm stuck in like, the genocide around is so bad. No. That's why you see, for me, I try to paint a good picture of Rwanda, even when there's all these things we've talked about, which might make you think we're in a miserable situation. And one thing that Rwandans are good at is not to dwell on the bad. You won't see them talking about, no, it's going to be good. There's a new stadium that just got built, very fantastic. If you Google it, you'll see that's all Rwandans are posting now. They're just posting a football stadium, because that's good. That's a good thing to look at. New road, they will post it for like 30 days. Then new hospital, they will post it for 100 days. Instead of being like, corruption or something, Yeah, that's how you encourage people to have a positive mindset. Yeah.
I think he's gonna go piss.
Yeah,
bro,
fine.
maybe we'll end it here, bro.
Yeah, definitely.
But honestly, Ian, man, thank you so much. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. And no one really talks about, Rwanda, even this thing, Rwandan genocide. People know, okay, maybe some people were killed, this and that. But even personally, this is something I just like recently learned about, maybe a year ago, I just knew it, something.
Yeah.
But it's very good to talk to you. And
thank you. Yeah.
And thank you for coming.
And I hope I gave you some understanding of the situation.
Yeah, you did. And you also, I understood that it's more complex than just the genocide, And not only is the genocide happening in Rwanda, but now it's also happening outside, you know, because people moved, people immigrated. Now it's like, it's almost all over the world. Who would have known that this genocide stuff now is creating conflict with people here in the UK,
Yeah.
So Yeah, it's very complex, but as you said, you know, we hope for the best.
Yeah, we hope for the best, and there will be better days, you know. And there's already good days.
Yeah.
But there will be better days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bro.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Thank you, man.
Yes,
All
yes.
right, we'll end it here.